I found this advertorial by Eat and Boost. First things first, I see the layout of this advertorial, and it doesn't look like your typical advertorial with a big image with a big headline on the top. It's got an image right here with a headline on the side right here. But they still have the typical, like, this thing right here, which is home trending products. It kind of shows what they're selling, and they got their headline right here. They got their person. Let's just see what it looks like on mobile. Okay, so it looks like a regular advertorial actually, but usually the words are on the top. But anyways, I'm just saying, like, when you're making your advertorials, you don't have to follow the typical format that everyone uses for their advertorials. Keep in mind that advertorials are really good, but most advertorials aren't even profitable. Most advertorials are not actually good. Even if you're using, the typical order, like story structure or advertorial structure, we're using the same layouts and the same kind of pacing. So let's say you write a story advertorial, you're starting with the hook, and then you're talking about the problem, and then you're gonna end up talking about the all the pain and all the experiences, and then the turning point, and then the solution, and then the product, and then testimonials, whatever, and then CTA. You don't have to follow those, and just because that's just the gold standard, right? That doesn't mean that it works the best. So this advertorial is about fatty liver is no longer an obstacle for me. How a natural supplement changed everything. Okay, so the important word is natural right here. It's not just a regular supplement, it's a natural supplement. Fatty liver is no longer an obstacle to me, so it's applicable to people with a fatty liver. So I'm thinking it's probably older people that they're targeting, right? There's men here, older men with fatty livers, probably, or just men with fatty livers or people with fatty livers. It was one of those days when everything seemed to be going perfectly. I'd come to my office to take on the world. Alright, this is like this is just kind of forced, but I guess like in a narrative is kind of interesting, but like if you're writing a story, you gotta make it like feel like a real story, or if you're writing an article, you gotta make it feel like an article, right? Who walks into their office ready to take on the world? Like, who does that? Like, that sounds like it came out from a movie. But then it happened. Looking in the bathroom mirror, noticed my eyes had a slightly yellow tint. Okay. Wait, let me see. What is it called? Symptoms of fatty liver. Fatigue, weakness, dull pain, discomfort in the upper right, unexplained weight loss, loss of appetite, yellow skin / eyes, more advanced stages. Okay. Bloating that plagued me for weeks. My business would feel like a torture device. My hands were shaking from the constant fatigue. Panic washed over me. I was supposed to be in my prime. Okay, 49. Maybe mentally, yeah, but no one really thinks of 49 as their prime. Maybe prime to enjoy, maybe at like 65 when you retire. Meanwhile, last weekend my 8-year-old daughter asked me why I couldn't play soccer like I used to. Okay, so it's talking about family, it's pulling the emotional strings. Would I even be around to see her graduate high school? Okay, so this is pretty good. I mean, it does instill a little bit of fear in them. Like, would I be able to see my kid graduate? Like, what price would you put to save yourself from potentially not seeing your kid to graduate? I'm sure it'd be a lot of money, right? So all of this stacks up when you're writing your copy. Like, little things, they stack up to increase perceived value. And that's the whole point of the advertorial, right? You want to increase perceived value so you can charge more for the same thing. My father had died of liver cirrhosis at 52. Was I heading down the same path? I spent in a dark spiral as an investigative journalist, 15 years uncovering hidden truths in the healthcare industry. Okay, I feel like this is a little bit too suspicious, okay? Now this person's all of a sudden a journalist, 15 years that uncovers hidden truths in the healthcare industry where this person has a health problem. It's like obviously a made up story. Now, I will say, even stuff like this will convert, like stories. I guess, I mean, it's not like a terrible story, but I'm just saying if you want to optimize your advertorial as good as possible, make sure that everything is believable and that even though if, 50-year-olds, 55-year-olds, a lot of them might still believe it's real. Like 55-year-olds, okay, they're 55, but they're not just dumb, okay? They can still tell between like lies, obvious lies, and truths, right? And something like this, like I read advertorials all the time, so I can notice it a lot quicker. But this is kind of like a weaker point in a lot of advertorials. They just come up with a story that's way too perfect for their product, and when people think, okay, so they're probably selling this product, right? People will start to think in their mind like that's not what you want. You don't want them to think you're selling to them, because that's just not really good for conversions. But of course, people will still buy. People always still buy even though they know they're being sold to, as long as you solve the problem at the end of the day. But of course, you want your stories to be believable. Shocking truths. It's a really good image, actually. Just shows different livers. I would probably display like this is a healthy liver, this is a this type of liver, and then this is a fatty liver. Maybe like put like stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, and then include like you're at stage 4. Kind of make it interactive, right? I was on a tour earlier, and the tour person, okay, they were giving a bunch of facts about, everything, like the history, right? But for me, like, I was thinking, if I was a tour guide, that's just so boring, because I was like almost falling asleep. They're just saying their facts. But an actual really good tour guide will make it feel a lot more personal, a lot more interactive, like personalized, a lot more, involvement with the actual people on the tour. Like if it's a small tour group, right? Let's say 5 to 7 people. So instead of just telling people information, you'd be like, here is, like, what is your experience with this, or what is your experience with that, right? You kind of want them to ask them questions and see their relatability, and then, and then only explain like, oh, did you know this or did you know that, when it makes sense in the conversation. So you can apply that same concept in advertorials, where you write specifically for the prospect, okay? You don't just want to feed them information. Of course, if they knew that information, they would be more likely to make the purchase. But the whole point is to get information in their mind, and when it's so boring, people just will click away and they won't care, okay? No matter how good your explanations are, or how good of you went over what they need to know, right? No matter how good your research is to condense everything they need to know in like 5 paragraphs, there's no point unless they actually read it and, feel relatable and feel that it applies to them, and, basically feels that it's exactly targeted towards them. Explain so many people's stories follow the pattern. Feeling fine for years. while their liver quietly accumulated damage. So they're feeding them information and education right here. It can get too overwhelmed when they come in too fast. So I like how they made it easy to understand. The breakthrough discovery. Okay. Most liver supplements fail because they don't. I'm not sure why they have this little eczema image right here before and after that's completely unrelatable. Alpha Cleanse, why the formula is so effective after 15 years of investigating supplement companies. Okay, now all of a sudden investing supplement companies, not just health problems. I learned to be cautious of big problems. These images are really good though. I think they're generated with AI, but these are really good images. Okay, these are what you're trying to get. Like if you're generating with AI, like these are fine. Just generate it. It could be better, but just generate it and it's good. I'm pretty sure this is AI. Look at this. No house has this, and also the background is, a lot AI like. But anyways, the results were people better blood tests. They're getting their lives back. Okay, my personal experience being an investigative journalist, question everything. My starting point was grim. Okay, now they're going through the experience of the writer, dramatic results. My skepticism couldn't explain why the numbers all down to 64. More reviews, where can I get Alpha Cleanse? Okay, so let me just see how much they're charging. Oh, they're running a sales page. Okay. And then order page, $36. I mean, generally looking, their sales page and order page are pretty decent. But this advertorial, okay, they have a few points, right? Like, they explain pretty decently. It visually looks good, okay? It matches their brand and looks good. They got decent images, and they got a general angle that they're using, right? And they're calling out their audience. They're saying, oh, my eye was like this, and then I was like this. They go through the story of the writer, and they have the authority, which is also the writer, who's, magically a supplement person, reporter for 15 years. Here's the big problem with this advertorial. And let me just list a few things, okay? First of all, I feel like this is very specific. I don't know the percentage of people with fatty liver who know and or experienced their eyes being like yellowish due to fatty liver. So that's really important. Now, if most people with a fatty liver don't know that a yellow eye is a symptom of a fatty liver or something dangerous, then it probably won't work, okay? So you gotta really research your market. I can't say too much about that because I didn't research about it. And generally, this advertorial, it's a bit text heavy, where yes, they made the layout visually appealing, but it's a little bit too much text, and I would split it up into lines, like 1 line, 2 lines, 3 lines, like a bunch of lines, and then a lot of images, because people love to skim. Okay, now 50-year-olds, with liver failure are more likely to read, because this is an important problem for them. If you have liver failure, I'm sure you're going to read an article about liver failure if you're actively trying to find solutions. But just make it easier for them to read it by just adding more visual images. I would probably put a liver image all the way up here, and then you can change this liver image, kind of explain it to show them visually, this is a bad liver and this is a good liver. Because I'm sure if they had a fatty liver, they probably already been to a doctor, right? And I'm thinking the appointments, probably the doctor will explain to them, but visually they probably don't know what it looks like. There was this one thing online where I saw this person, they were like a smoker, and then apparently they saw visually what a smoking lung looked like, and then they just stopped smoking. So just having that is really important, and visualizing it for people. A lot of people are visual learners, or they like to see things visually, and visually, just they say a picture is 1,000 words. So take advantage of pictures, okay? And of course, you don't want to just put pictures in just to put pictures. You put pictures to support the copy. You don't want pictures to take away from the copy and be the main attention grabber. You want the images to support your copy, and that's what Gary Halbert said, I'm pretty sure. So another thing is, generally this entire advertorial is not as believable. I would definitely change up the story. Instead of just making this person suddenly a 15-year reporter on hidden truths in the healthcare industry, and then later turning it into 15 years of investigating supplement companies, instead of just continuously changing the story, stick to one story. Okay, that's first things first. Second, this person is doing too many things, right? He's uncovering hidden truths in the healthcare industry. He's a 15-year supplement person. This guy also had a dad with a fatty liver, magically. And this guy tried the product. And then this guy's like, it's just too perfect scenario that doesn't really make sense, okay? Like, of course it does make sense, but it doesn't make sense to someone who is in the position in the audience, right? Of course, you want your stories to be relatable and believable as well. And typically, you're not going to see this type of full stack person that's magically writing a report about this product as well on top of all these things. It just is like a little bit fishy, and it just doesn't come off as genuine. And even if no one says it, even if your prospects don't say it, it's just in their mind subconsciously, right? So really, I would introduce other people in the story, just like he did. They already introduced their 8-year-old daughter that, is pulling some emotional strings, which could be relatable, right? Their kid is asking them why they couldn't play games with them, right? Why they couldn't have fun with them. That's a big point. That's a good point. What else? This guy should have, maybe a doctor figure that's a supplement expert, maybe his best friend from childhood, they reconnected, and then, he revealed the product or whatever. You kind of gotta make things more believable, because nowadays, especially, people are skeptical, okay? Skeptical, there's especially AI, and, people are very, very like, is this real or is this not real? And of course, there's some people they're like, they don't care if it's real or not anymore. But generally, okay, you want to make things believable and real. That's just how it is. And you'll get better doing it, writing more. But, that's generally what you want to remember when writing your advertorials. Let me see, word count. 1479 words. I feel like that's they could probably write more and include a lot more scientific diagrams and just visual representations, just like this. This is a great image, okay? They probably generated with AI too. Just make visual representations, okay? And you can label them, or you can have videos, and kind of do that for your customers, okay? So it's easy for them to see. Anyways, if you need an advertorial, I make advertorials on X. You can message me, my account's in the description, and I can help you with that.